Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Or when we are one big European family, maybe I can say also in my own language, hyvää huomenta, good morning in Finnish. Very nice to be here. Very nice to be here. And thank you very much for the organizers organizing this event to discuss about the topical cybersecurity issues, and at the same time we have to look forward a little bit. And even if, as you very well know, it's very hard to predict the future, I can guarantee you two things when we are talking about cybersecurity. First of all, the importance of the cybersecurity is going to be much greater than it is at the moment. The second point is, and the key word here, is the cooperation. At the moment, many countries are emphasizing this so-called PPP partnership, public-private partnership. I should add one more P, people, public-private people partnership, because the cooperation with these between these three P's is actually essential, and it's something that we really have to do. In Finland, we call that comprehensive security approach. But for example, I just recently visited the United States, and they are now, at the moment, because of the cyber challenges, what they are facing, creating this so-called whole of nation or whole of society approach. But cooperation inside one country between different actors is not enough. I would emphasize, especially when we are in Europe at the moment, that the cooperation between the like-minded nations is essential as well. And when I'm thinking about the future of the France, future of the Finland, future of the Europe, future of the cybersecurity, the cooperation between the like-minded nations here in the European Union is an essential point. And at the same time, when we are looking at the future in cybersecurity, we have to be very open-minded. And I would say also we have to have courage. And that is one reason why I really like this French artist, Jean-Marc and some of his colleagues, a little bit over 100 years ago, so in the late of 800s, they were actually drawing these pictures, trying to imagine how the world looked like after 100 years. And think about it, if you would have lived 120 years ago, and at that moment, where the horse was probably the biggest innovation, you would have to imagine how the world looks after 100 years. I would say that these artists, Jean-Marc and the others, have done a pretty good job having this kind of imagination when thinking about the future 120 years ago. And this is something what we are using in our university at the moment. So ladies and gentlemen, when we are talking about cybersecurity and when we are talking about technology, we have to remember that us, humans, we are creating technology in a faster and in more radical way at the moment than we have ever done before. And the speed is accelerating. And when we are thinking about the future, my excellent colleagues from the future studies internationally, they are telling me that the human life will change more in next 30 years than it has done in the past 300 years. So we really have to use the imagination when we are thinking about the future of the technology and future of the cybersecurity in it. And that is the reason why I don't like that usually, even today, primarily, we think about the cybersecurity issues especially from the so-called technical, tactical level point of view. Nowadays, and especially in the coming years, these are very important issues from the politics point of view and as from the strategic point of view. So primarily, when we are talking about the cybersecurity, I would say that we need more people as a strategic and policy thinkers to consider about these issues. And I was actually very happy to give a keynote a while ago to the head of states of the European Union. So this picture is from that meeting, not from the Star Trek. And think about these EU leaders gathered for 2 days in Estonia to discuss about the cybersecurity issues. And one of the key points what came to my mind during those 2 days was that yes, we were talking about the different threats and risks, especially how our digital societies can be vulnerable, different interference methods, especially from the cyber point of view nowadays. But actually, more we were thinking about and discussing about how security in this digital era can be a competitive advantage for European Union and European countries, as well as how security is an enabler when we are trying to maintain and actually strengthening the trust in this technological development. So I would say, talking about the future of the cybersecurity, this is one of the biggest challenges what we have at the moment. We don't have enough political interest or political understanding of the complexity of the technological development. And on the other hand, we don't have enough technical people who understand the political challenges in this field. And when we want to succeed in cybersecurity in European Union, this is the challenge what we have to face and solve, I would say, pretty soon. Because in a bigger context, I would describe that when we are talking about the new normal of security, and if you ask me, this new normal will continue in the coming years, there are 3 key features in this new security normal. First of all, the speed of change, especially in the technology, in the digitalization. And as many governmental papers, for example, in European Union are nowadays saying that everything that can be digitized will be digitized sooner or later. But also in the physical world. The second point is the complexity, which I would say or argue is the biggest challenge for the cybersecurity and security experts nowadays. You can't pick just one risk or threat and concentrate on that. You have to understand the complexity of the security environment and how different threats and risks are more and more intertwined to each other. And the third point is the blurring dichotomies, what is happening at the moment. And I think it's the human mind. We like to divide issues, black and white, war and peace, external security, internal security. But all these dichotomies are blurring. And I think this is, from the strategic point of view, one of the challenges also what we are facing at the moment and thinking about the future, that we too strongly separate this so-called world of atoms, this real physical world, and this world of bits, so-called digital world or cyber domain. Because when I am thinking about how the societies like France or Finland or Estonia, or more or less any European Union country nowadays is functioning, I would say that these 2 worlds are already very strongly intertwined. For example, all critical functions in our societies, energy, electricity, logistics, and so on, are actually run by computers and software. And if the ICT, so-called, is not working, so doesn't the physical world. Or you can approach this from a little bit different perspective. This happened a few weeks ago. Israel, especially the IDF, Israel Defense Forces, was claiming that the Hamas is conducting cyber attacks against Israel society. And what was the response? Not in the cyber world, but in the physical world. And like we used to do nowadays, actually the IDF also published in the social media this update that we know that these cyber attacks are coming from Gaza, from this building, and we are going to bomb it and kill those people. But this is not new. This has happened already before. We have to keep in mind that at least at the moment, the most valuable asset, well, of course you need organizations, you need technology, you need resources, for sure, if you want to be a very good player in the cyber field. But the most important asset what we have in cybersecurity is actually talented individuals. Talented individuals. So a good hacker, as you know, can do very bad things in the digital world. Like this happened. This Junaid Hussein, who used to be part of the ISIS, he was doing some nasty things in the internet, and how USA, in this case, solved this problem. They killed it. Killed a man so he is not able to do any cyber attacks after that. And also when we are talking about the blurring the dichotomies, one of the trends, not only concerning about Russia, is that the nation states are more and more outsourcing their cyber activities to non-state actors, which makes this whole situation politically even more challenging. And these dichotomies between cyber activists, some cyber criminal groups, state actors, is increasingly blurred as well. And we have to keep in mind that technology is a tool, and we can use it for different purposes, for good or for bad. And when we are thinking about the future of the cybersecurity, I think we are more and more talking about, also from the technical point of view, the artificial intelligence, and what kind of impact that will have to the cybersecurity as well as to the world politics. But here is one key issue what I really want to emphasize to you when we are talking about the future of the cybersecurity. Most probably, in the coming decade, the nation states will not be the most powerful actors in cyberspace. They will be these huge global technology companies who are growing and growing all the time. They have the data, they have usually the best human brains working for them, they have usually the big resources to develop these different technologies. And this is a challenge for Europe. When we are talking about the future of the cybersecurity and the increasing power of these huge global technology companies, where are the European options? Or where are the European actors in this field? And this is going to be a very important question in coming years. So I would say also that in European Union, talking about the cybersecurity, we have to be bold at this moment, and we have to be decisive as well. And one of my key messages to you, ladies and gentlemen, is that European Union must become self-sufficient in cybersecurity, meaning also that we can't have credible cybersecurity in Europe if we don't have credible cybersecurity industry. And at the moment, I would say we have good people, we have good policies, we have good strategies, we have pretty good cooperation between the different European Union countries. But one of the key points is that we don't have enough cybersecurity industry in this field. Market share, according to the researches, has gone down. And the second point, how small these companies usually are, I would say that that is pretty sad situation for the Europe at the moment. When I have been working in security issues more or less all my life, first as an officer in the Finnish Defence Forces, CEO in a global company, professor in the university, and so on, I have to say that I have been a little bit surprised lately when I have been thinking about the future of the security and cybersecurity, that I have been thinking more and more about the ethical and moral issues. Ethical and moral issues. I think we are pretty soon also from the cybersecurity, we are coming to that point where we are not asking that what we can do or what can be done with technology, but what should be done. What should be done with the technology. And I think when we are talking about the future of the cybersecurity, the ethical and moral questions, issues in technology, in security, in technical perspective as well, in security considerations are going to be more and more important. And the biotechnology, information technology, human science, they are blurring these lines as well. And this is not the future. For example, as one example, this was organized a while ago, this so-called all-machine cyber hacking tournament, where actually there was a cyber fighting between the computers. And the idea was that they don't need humans because humans are too slow, we are too limited in our brains. But actually in this competition, these different big computers were fighting against each other, trying to find new vulnerabilities in each other's systems and trying to find new offensive methods how to break into the other system. And maybe in the coming years, when we are talking about the cybersecurity battles, we are talking about AI versus AI computer battles from the technical point of view. And this is one trend where we are heading to. I am following very carefully, for example, what this research unit of the Pentagon, DoD, DARPA, how they are developing the next generation technology. And this is one of the key principles what they have. In a way, how to get rid of the human. So for me, thinking about the future, I think the best way to anticipate it is to create it or innovate it by ourselves, especially here in Europe. And in that case, ecosystems, cooperation between the like-minded nations is really needed, as you can very well understand. Because the big trends are, like we have been discussing in this Paris Cyber Week, that everything, believe me, literally, everything will be sooner or later connected to internet. And we are pretty often forgetting that when we are digitizing different issues at the moment, the main target of the digitalization is actually at the moment human. We are digitizing human brains. And we are connecting more and more as humans to the internet, not only via this smartwatch or this smart ring or something like that. That's why we are talking about, as you know, very strongly nowadays, the IoE, Internet of Everything. And then it's about the data and the data analytics. And the connectivity is the word what actually changes the world. And security has to be part of this all development. We all know, and it has been emphasized pretty strongly, the importance of the data when we are talking about the future. And I think from the cybersecurity point of view, and thinking about the future, we have to pay a special attention to the data. In a way, we can say that who actually owns the data in the future owns the future. Maybe the future wars will not be fought over some piece of land somewhere in Europe, but over the data. And as you very well know in data, when we are talking about the information security, we are talking about the integrity of the data, we are talking about the confidentiality of the data, and we are talking about the availability of the data. One big trend, I would say, when we are talking about the coming years and cybersecurity, will actually concern about the integrity of the data, the risk of data manipulation. So meaning that probably the biggest challenge for us is not anymore that someone breaches into our systems and steals our data, or breaches into systems and deletes our data, but manipulates it. So we are losing our trust to integrity of the data. Or losing trust of the functionality of this small device. And this is already happening. As you have probably seen these news, how hackers are able to change the cancer pictures in the hospitals. And then actually the doctors are believing that, okay, these are the real pictures when they are actually not. They are manipulated or even data poisonized pictures. When we are talking about the future of the cybersecurity, I think especially in the academia, we usually divide the layers of the cyberspace to these 3 different layers. And usually when we are talking about the cybersecurity, we are concentrating on the so-called software layer. But the importance of the 2 other layers is going to grow. First of all, we often forget that there is very strong physical infrastructure enabling this digital reality. And this is a picture what we are especially in the international cyber conferences nowadays watching more and more carefully. Sea cables who are actually transmitting all the data in the world at the moment, approximately 98% of it via physical cables. Via physical cables. And the second point, when we are talking about the future of the cybersecurity, is the cognitive level. How this information technology enables for certain actors to affect our minds, affect our feelings, affect our values. And I think this cognitive approach will be more and more important. So if you ask me, I would say that the biggest cyber battles will be actually fought over our thoughts, affecting our brains. And that brings to the very important question is that who controls actually the algorithms in the future, and who are controlling the algorithm-based influencing is more and more affecting our thoughts. And once again, I would like to raise here that where are the European options for this? Because especially we are living at the moment in Europe the situation where this one is blurrying, war and peace. I think we are living in the so-called gray time activities, and especially in Europe we call these gray time activities, intentionally staying below the so-called level of or threshold of declaration of war. We call these hybrid operations. And in hybrid operations, the cyber technical and cyber psychological methods are the spearheads of this influencing. And what is happening already is that cyber, in one way or another, is already an element in all crises and wars what we are seeing in the world. But I wouldn't use the term cyber war, because that means that the war will be fought only in the digital domain. No, this is part of it. And this is not a revolution, this is evolution. Changes also the other domains, land, sea, air, space. But I think one of the simple and pretty hard question nowadays is that what is actually war in 2019 and how we define it, or how we define it after 10 years. Especially when we are thinking about the different cyber-technical and cyber-psychological influencing methods. And that's why, once again, as an evolution, it's normal that different countries are developing their own cyber capabilities. Defense, intelligence, and offensive capabilities as well. And I really like that France has been, at least to my eyes, been a forerunner in this field, especially when we are reading, and you can be sure many countries are carefully reading the latest strategy of yours, where you are telling that what is the role of the offensive capabilities in this field. But honestly, we have to also already understand that when we are talking about the sophisticated nation-state actors, they probably have that kind of capabilities that we just don't know it. And they are testing these capabilities, testing so-called the boundaries of the cyber battlefield, what is happening at the moment. So in that sense, I would change this phrase, what was said by war theorist Karl von Clausewitz almost 200 years ago, that the war is the continuation of the politics by other means. That hybrid warfare, especially with the cyber-enabled interference and influencing methods, is the continuation of the politics with hybrid capabilities. And that's why I'm very happy that we have nowadays in Finland the European Centre of Excellence for Countering Hybrid Threats, attending at the moment 23 EU and NATO countries, and this was established approximately 2 years ago, and one of the founder member states was France. So very happy to have you on board in that as well. And I would say from the warfare point of view, this is the future where we are heading to. We have to understand the past, we have to understand the evolution, but we are heading in next decade more and more in this hybrid reality to the so-called non-kinetic, meaning cyber-enabled hybrid interference. But once again, we have to be able to think about the next step. If there was first land, then sea, then air, then space, then cyber domains, so 5 domains warfare nowadays, what will be the 6th one? The best guess what we have at the moment is actually the human brains, and especially hacking the human brains as a 6th domain of warfare. So ladies and gentlemen, in the conclusion, I would say that when we are talking about the digitalization and the development of the technology, there is no turning back. There is no turning back. And this development should not be run by technology. What I am a little bit worried is that how we people keep the pace with this development, and how we are able to keep the human in the center of this development, not the technology. And that is probably the biggest challenge for us also in cybersecurity in coming years. Do not forget humans, and keep the humans in the center of this development. Thank you very much.